The mountain man saw a husband beating his pregnant wife. What he did next saved 2 lives. The wind came down early in the mountains, sliding off the ridges like it had somewhere to be. It was the kind of cold that wrapped around your bones, not just your coat. Elias Walker stood outside his cabin, boots half buried in snow, holding a steaming mug of black coffee. His beard was white at the edges, his eyes the kind that had seen war and stayed quiet about it. He didn't talk much. Not to people, anyway. He talked to the trees, the crows, the silence. A shotgun rested by the door, unloaded, not because he wasn't ready, just because he never needed to be first. The cabin sat on a ridge above the valley, the only one for 8 miles. Below, a winding road snaked through bare trees, empty as a ghost town. That's when he saw it. A dark pickup truck parked where the trees thickened. Didn't belong there. Then movement. A woman stumbled out, her body bent like she couldn't stand straight. She fell, then tried to crawl back. A man stormed out after her. His voice didn't carry far, but his fists did. Elias didn't flinch. He just watched. The man kicked her side. She curled in, protecting her stomach. Her hands cradled it like something lived there, and maybe it did. The man spat, walked away, slammed the truck door. The engine roared. He didn't help her up. He didn't look back. The truck vanished into the woods. Elias didn't move for a long moment. Then, slow and deliberate, he set the mug down on the porch rail, grabbed his coat, and walked toward the girl in the snow. She didn't speak. Elias crouched beside her, the snow crunching quietly under his knees. Her coat was torn, hanging off one shoulder. Blood traced down from her temple, dried into her hair. One hand held her belly. The other just hung. She didn't cry. That's what struck him. No sound, no begging, just breathing. Shallow, hollow. Elias didn't ask questions. He didn't offer words. Words were often useless things, especially when trust had been beaten out of someone. He took off his flannel jacket and gently laid it over her. She flinched. He paused, waited, then tucked it around her slower this time, like covering a fire he didn't want to snuff out. The wind whistled through the trees again, low and lonesome. And then came the ache, that deep, slow pull from his chest, because he'd seen eyes like hers before. He'd seen them in the desert, in a boy no older than 16, half buried under rubble after an ambush. Eyes that didn't ask for rescue because they no longer believed it was possible. Eyes that said, "If you leave, I understand." He remembered walking away then. Orders, protocol. War didn't leave space for saviors. But this wasn't war. This was a broken girl in the snow, and a baby inside her that hadn't done anything to deserve any of this. He looked down the hill again. No sign of the truck, no tire tracks, just a bruised patch of snow where her body had landed. He could leave, walk back up to the cabin, pretend he hadn't seen it, call someone else maybe, let them deal with it. He stood up slowly, took a step back. She turned her face toward him, barely. There was a flicker in her eyes, not of hope, but of surrender, and that was what did it. He sighed, deep from the ribs, scratched at his jaw. Then, quietly, he said the first words in days. "Let's get you inside." The cabin smelled of old wood and fire. Elias eased her onto the couch, near the stone hearth where embers still glowed. He didn't ask her name. She didn't offer it. He left a blanket, a cup of warm broth, then stepped outside to think. An hour passed before she spoke. "His name's Cal," she said, voice like gravel scraping through silence. "He said the baby wasn't his, said I'd done it on purpose." Elias didn't turn. He just listened to the wind brush through pine needles. "He dragged me out the truck when I told him I wanted to keep it." A long pause. "I don't know where he went, but he'll come back." Elias finally looked over his shoulder. Her eyes weren't scared anymore, just tired. "He's done this before?" She nodded. "Why stay?" She didn't answer. He didn't press. He knew the weight of chains you couldn't see. Later that evening, as the storm rolled in from the peaks, Elias checked the perimeter. Animal tracks. Snow starting to fall again. He felt it in his ribs, something shifting in the dark. He went back inside, sat across from her, studied her posture. She hadn't touched the food. "You're not just running from a man," he said flatly. She looked up, startled. "You're hiding from something bigger." She swallowed hard. "He's not just some guy. He runs with men who do things out past the county line, girls mostly, makes them disappear." Elias's jaw locked. The war never truly left. It just hid behind the trees. "Name?" She hesitated. "Cal Forrester." Elias had heard it before. Once, years back. A rumor from a sheriff in town about a crew with dirt in every pocket, drugs, trafficking, payoffs to keep their names clean. If Cal was part of that, then this wasn't just a broken marriage. It was a hunt. "They'll come looking," she whispered. He nodded. "They will." "Then you should let me go." He stood, walked to the window. Snow falling now, thick and fast. "No," she stared at him. "I left someone behind once," he said, almost to himself. "Not again." The wind howled. Somewhere far off, an engine echoed through the valley, faint but coming closer. The next morning came grey and hushed. Snow covered the porch, the steps, even the shotgun Elias had left, propped outside. Inside, the girl, her name was Mara, sat bundled by the fire, still didn't speak much, but she watched. That was something. Elias moved like the mountain, slow, deliberate. He cooked breakfast without a word, slid a plate toward her. She didn't thank him. She just ate, small bites, like each one had to earn its place. Later he took her outside, the air bit sharp as flint. He handed her the .22, lighter than the shotgun, but enough. Her hands shook. "Try," he said. She raised it, aimed at the tin can he'd set on a stump. Missed. He didn't comment. She fired again, closer. By the fifth shot it fell. She looked at him just for a second, and he saw something flicker. Not pride, not yet, just the idea of it. That night, she helped him chop vegetables. Her left wrist barely worked, maybe fractured. He didn't ask, just handed her the softer tasks. When the soup was simmering, they sat across from each other, a candle between them. He rolled up his sleeve to scratch, and the scar showed, deep, jagged, old. She stared. "What was it?" she finally asked. "IED, outside Mosul. He didn't offer more. He never did." She looked down at her arm, tugged up the sleeve. Small, pale lines, faint, but many. "I used to think pain made me strong," she said quietly. "Turns out it just made me numb." He didn't answer, just nodded once. The kind that says "I know." The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of the things neither could say yet. She washed the dishes without asking. He stoked the fire and laid an extra blanket near her couch. Outside, night settled over the mountain like a thick sigh. Inside, for the first time in a long time, there was warmth, not just from the fire, but from the unspoken thing between them. Not love, not yet, but a shared ache and a quiet knowing. You survived. So did I. Maybe that's enough. The knock came just after dusk. Not loud, calculated. Elias had been expecting it. He stood by the door, shotgun in hand. Mara was in the pantry, behind the false wall he'd built years ago, not for her, but for himself. A place to disappear when memory got too loud. 3 men stood on the porch. One wore a badge, not the county's, private, crooked, bought, the kind that held no weight unless it came with a gun. The middle one stepped forward, clean-shaven. "Too clean for the mountain?" "Cal." "Evening," he said, smiling like this was a courtesy visit. "Looking for my wife." Elias didn't respond, just stared. "You might have seen her. Slipped off this morning. Pregnant. Confused. Says things that ain't true when she's scared." "She ain't here," Elias said. "Low, cold," Cal laughed. "Mind if we take a look?" Elias stepped out, closing the door behind him. No need. The man with the badge shifted, hand near his holster. "You gonna stop us, old man?" Elias tilted his head. "Not fear, not even anger, just bone-deep stillness. You've hurt her enough," he said. "She's not going back." Cal's smile dropped. "You're making a choice that ain't yours to make." Elias's voice didn't rise. "It is now." A beat passed, the kind where time stretches thin. Then the gun cocked, not Elias's. One of Cal's men stepping off the porch. But before anything moved, before anyone fired, Mara stepped out, barefoot, holding Elias's revolver with both hands. "Don't!" she said, voice breaking but loud. "Don't take me!" Cal looked at her, not with fear but possession, the way men look at things they think they own. "You think he'll protect you?" Cal spat. "He's a broken war ghost in a shack." Mara didn't blink. "I'd rather die here than go back with you." A silence fell, a deeper kind. Then the badge man stepped forward, weapon raised. That's when Elias fired. It wasn't chaos. It was one shot, center mass. The man dropped. The others hesitated, guns up, but Elias had moved, fast, practiced, not aimless. He wasn't a war ghost. He was still a soldier. A second man raised his weapon. Too slow. Elias tackled him, disarmed, tossed the rifle into the snow. Then came Cal. Coward, but not stupid. He didn't pull the trigger. Instead, he dropped the gun and ran. Disappeared into the woods, leaving his men bleeding and broken. Elias stood, chest heaving. Mara still pointing the revolver, shaking. He put a hand on hers, lowered it. "It's over," he whispered. But they both knew. Not really. Not yet. The snow was crimson in patches, silent except for the soft crackle of the firewood Elias tossed on the flames. One man lay still in the snow, breath long gone. The second groaned quietly on the porch, hands bound, jacket pressed to a wound. Cal was gone, but not far enough to forget. Mara hadn't moved in 10 minutes, still holding the revolver like a lifeline. Her arms trembled. Elias knelt beside her, gently pried it from her hands. She didn't stop him. Inside, the warmth felt different. Not safe, just real, like pain finally settling in after too many hours of holding it back. Mara sat by the hearth, knees pulled to her chest. Her eyes weren't wide anymore, just empty, but not broken. Elias moved around the cabin without speaking. Cleaning blood, packing food, checking ammo. Preparing, not because he wanted to, but because he knew what came next. They couldn't stay. By morning, they were gone. The wounded man had been left behind, with a warning carved into the snow beside him. "Try again." "And next time I bury two." They hiked for hours through the cold. No words, no questions, just the sound of boots on frozen ground. And Mara, holding her belly gently like a small, quiet promise. By sundown, they reached the old ranger station Elias hadn't visited in years. Abandoned, but enough shelter, enough distance. He fixed the lock, lit the stove, made tea. She sat beside him. Then, for the first time, she reached out, placed her hand on his, just held it there. No pressure, no trembling, and he let her. Outside, snow fell again, slow and steady. Inside, a fire burned. A kettle hissed, and two people, survivors, sat in the silence, not as strangers, but something else, not family, not yet. But maybe something closer than that. Spring came late in the mountains. The snow melted in patches, revealing stubborn grass and half-buried memories. At the old ranger station, a new garden had begun to grow. Rough rows, uneven, but alive. Elias built a fence, slow and methodical. Mara painted the walls inside, soft strokes of pale green and warm cream. She didn't ask what had been here before. He didn't tell her. The past had roots, but it didn't get to bloom. She was heavier now. The baby had dropped, her walk slower, steadier. She hummed sometimes, mostly to herself. Sometimes near Elias, he didn't talk much still. But when he handed her a bowl of stew or fixed the squeaky door without her asking, that was his language. One morning, she found a box on the porch. Old wood, sanded smooth. Inside was a hand-carved rattle, no note. Just his work. She didn't cry. but she pressed it to her chest like something sacred. Later that week, she placed a small wooden cross at the edge of the clearing, not for anyone in particular, just for what had been lost, for who she used to be, and beside it, she planted a single violet. Elias didn't ask what it meant, but he stood there with her when she did it. They never spoke of Cal again, not because it didn't matter, but because the silence between them had already said enough. Time passed like it always does. Not quickly, not cleanly, but it passed. Sometimes pain doesn't leave. Sometimes it just sits beside you at the table a little quieter each day, and sometimes healing doesn't look like joy. It looks like two people sitting on a porch at dusk, watching the wind move through the trees, not running, not hiding, just breathing, together. He never told her she was safe. He just made sure she never had to be afraid again.